We all have ways of growing that help us value our unique intuition and flex the energy of our imagination. It is this intuitive connection that allows us to develop inner tools of resiliency and helps us draw on these inner tools to manifest what we most desire to create in our lives, even if our ordinary reality is not particularly enriching or supportive at the time. In this talk, you will learn to recognize how to tap into this magical place inside yourself at any time, as well as how to get a glimpse of how your unique totems and helpers may introduce themselves, speak to and through you, as well as help, guide, and inspire you so you can navigate the experiences of your life in a way that helps you to grow, individuate, and awaken. I will share which animal totems help me connect and further explore the growing edges and gifts of each chakra they speak to and through. It is my hope that this presentation will help you to explore and open up to more enriching magical connections with your chakras and animal friends, as well as helping you feel a deeper sense of self and indwelling in your body, heart, mind, and soul. It is this practice more than any other that has helped me awaken, revive, heal, and grow. I would love to know how this practice has enriched your spiritual journey as well. Please feel free to share your stories if you feel drawn to. Thank you for listening. Enjoy. Okay, so my name is Jenny Seek, and tonight I'm going to talk about working with animal totems. And this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. I have done a lot with psycho-spiritual work and do counseling work as well, and have found limitations in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy or therapy where we go back and look at our family of origin, because what we do when we do that is we go back into this place where we're going back over old ground. And so what I like about working with animal totems is we're really going forward. We're going forward and we're creating a part of ourselves that gets to escape that old story. So animal totems are a wonderful way to kind of capture what it is we're becoming slowly, bit by bit. And I think that, we as individuals struggle with different kinds of parts of ourselves. Some of us struggle with being our authentic selves, saying what's really true for us in the world and moving toward our vision. Some of us struggle with our persona. We struggle with what we should be in the world and how we should appear, and strictures around that we've gotten from our family or our earliest experiences. And some of us struggle with our shadow. We struggle with taking ideas that are in our unconscious and integrating them back into our conscious life, and getting rid of the emphasis around the fear or the darkness. And so all of these different parts of psyche, when we do traditional kinds of counseling, I feel like often get re-triggered. And for some people in the counseling process, it's important to re-trigger that and to work through it. But I like the idea of moving into this who we're meant to be, because we come in with a certain amount of struggles or wounds, if you will, which are often karmic. And so when we set aside that person that we've been told we should be, and we set aside those difficulties around how to become that person, and we go into this place of the psycho-spiritual, we go into this place of our creative self, we really can find things that are just brand new, and it's easy for us to step into what the universe has meant for us. This is the Jungian idea of individuation, Joseph Campbell's idea of following your bliss, that we're not meant to just repeat old ground. We're meant to go into the future, and we're meant to become something new. And we don't even know what that is yet. And animal totems really, really help us to do that, because they give us a way to check in with ourself where we're not really ourself, right? Because, if you check in and you're like, I have this grumpy person often, I'm sure we all do, And then this happy person, you can think about this in terms of the idea of the two wolves, right? This story of the two wolves and this grandfather who shows up, and this little boy who says, there's these two wolves. I think the grandfather says there's these two wolves that fight inside, and one of them is, fear and isolation and death and, Thanatos, what Freud calls Thanatos. And one of them is this more life-affirming process. It's this hope, this beauty, this love, this awareness, and the grandfather's, and the little boy says, well, which wolf wins? And the grandfather says, the one that you feed. And so I think about this a lot, because when we go back over this old ground, and right now we're really struggling with it in terms of the fact that we're going into a period where Venus is in retrograde. So that's a time where we're really struggling with integrating relationships and trying to figure out how to grow them forward and what works for us and these sorts of things. And these animal totems allow us to check in with ourselves in a way where we're not going back over this old ground. We're not going back over this whole idea of, only these two wolves that are us. You know what I mean? So I do this work, and I do it more often. And for me, a lot of it is becoming aware and being reminded to do it, because often, we're in ourself, we're in our work, we're in our struggles, and we just forget to check in this really unique way. And it's so important to be able to ask the different parts of ourselves what they have for us today, and break down the time around this precious sacred moment, because it really is a sacred moment. And if we can step outside of all of the strictures, all of the stuff of life, we can see it that way. So I'm going to talk tonight about working with animal totems in relationship with the chakras. Ted Andrews talks about this, and there are other animal totem people who talk about this. There's another way to work with animal totems, similar to working with dreams, where you kind of open a book and you read something and you say, that's me. And it's great to check in and to get a sense of what resonates for you. But often these kinds of books have kind of a flat story about what a dream could be, or what an animal totem or relationship with an animal totem could be. But I want to suggest to you that these relationships with animals and these parts of ourself, these psychospiritual parts of ourself that are just becoming, are alive, and that the more we instill energy into this idea that they have a life, the more we generate or galvanize energy around that idea. So I'm going to talk about just basically the challenges of each chakra, and then the opportunities of each chakra, and then I'm going to share with you the animal totems that have shown up for me on my journey. And I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to open it up to you guys and ask you what animal totems speak to you as well. And when we're talking about working with animal totems, there's so many ways to do it. We can do it through shamanic work, which is drumming work, where we ask the animal to come to us and give us a gift. We can do it through dream work. We can do it through an actual relationship with an actual animal, which I like the best. It's the most exciting. It's the most where we get out of ourselves, where we realize that there really is this innate connection with all of life. And sometimes when we're really stuck in a corner in ourselves, if we have a relationship with an animal and we allow their wisdom to come in and all of their energy and their gifts, we can shift something by getting out of ourselves. So I like that way of doing it the most. It's great to open up books and see what resonates as well. And I would say too that the best way to start noticing what animals, what energies are active in you, are noticing what animals you're drawn to, noticing what animals you really, really are intrigued by, what animals you love, what animals you hate. That's good to connect with your shadow energy and start to understand that, and just to notice, like, energetically. I'll bet you all have stories about, when I was a kid, I loved horses, and I could get, I would go horseback riding, and I would get lost in that process. And so I would suggest to you that often the animals that are most active and most want to speak in your life are the ones that are already there. They're already there in your dream life. They're already there maybe on your porch. I connect with squirrels a lot. But they're already there. They're just waiting for you to listen to them. So when I think about the chakra system, I think about first the root chakra, which has to do with safety and moving through defenses. It has to do with taking up space in our life and taking up space in our environment, being willing to take up more space. And for me, that chakra is bat. And bat for me is about the cycle of rebirth, because bats hang upside down and they come out at night. And so I had a series of dreams. Well, I had a dream when I was younger, and I had forgotten this dream because I have my seventh chakra is seal, and seal, I had a shamanic journey where seal showed up and he was on a kite string and kind of flying in the sky. And when that happened, I realized that I'd also had a dream with a bat where they were on a kite string and they were flying in the sky, and I was connected to the earth, and there was this feeling of flight and feeling of wonder and, this kind of thing. But for me, in my family of origin, I had a family that really, when you were sick, when you were struggling with illness, they would kind of make you go away and isolate you, and they wouldn't come talk to you and this sort of thing. So sickness was something that in my family we took in on this very, very visceral level. And there wasn't a way to move through and regroup and heal yourself. And this has been a metaphor in my life. I've always been able to really heal myself very, very easily by setting intention, by juicing, by this sort of thing. And just by setting a different course. When I was young, I had heel spurs for a while, and my dad says, "Oh, that's your dancing partner." And I'm like, "What do you mean, my dancing partner?" He said, "You're going to have those for the rest of your life." And I was like, I don't think so. That's the kind of family of origin stories that kind of create grooves in our psyche where we go, oh, like this illness is here forever because this is what my family tells me is true, and these are the people I trust. And so for me, bat is about this rebirthing energy. It's about saying, no, I can heal myself instantly. Bat comes off the wall and flies, and then if you're familiar with the tarot, it's the Hanged Man in the tarot. So it's about being in this state of surrender, this state of rebirth. And so bat is very core for me, and helps me to heal, and helps me to remind myself of my great, great capacity to heal. So as I'm going through these animal totems and sharing with you the stories about mine, I'd like you to think about yours, and I'd invite you to enrich your story about what that looks like. Often we're not encouraged when we open these books to really figure out what the animal story looks like for us, all the nuances, all the details of the story, which create such a wonderful story. And so I encourage you to kind of step outside of your comfort zone a little and add to that story about the animals. If you knew what was true, if you knew what they were saying to you, what would that be? Because that's what we're holding in our unconscious anyway. So what you feel like they're sharing with you is what they're sharing with you. So I encourage you to explore and stretch those parameters for yourself. So the second chakra is our sacral chakra. It's right there underneath our belly button. And when we are struggling with that chakra, we're struggling with allowing more joy into our life. We're struggling with being present-centered, with being spontaneous, with allowing ourselves to connect with our five senses deeply. When we go through situations that are traumatizing, it's easy for us to flatten down around our sensory experiences. So we don't see, touch, taste, smell, and hear as vividly as we would. And we're doing that because we're trying to block out things that have been painful in the past. So it's our need to self-soothe and to keep too much information, too much stimuli down. So it is a healing thing that's doing it, but sometimes we outgrow the energy. So when this chakra is balanced, it's easy for us to feel a real sense of joy, a real sense of connection, to feel all of our five senses vibrantly and clearly, and this is when colors get brighter and sounds get fuller, and when we find ourselves really loving music. And when we're small children, it's easy for us to connect with these spontaneous expressions in spirit. But as we're forced to move into a place of ego more and more, often those energies get tamped down, and maybe just because other things take up the space. So for me, that energy has to do with tiger. And tiger has to do with the concept of success. Tiger is the only cat that likes to be in water, so likes to connect with the energy of the unconscious, if you will. And tiger, for me, when I started working with tiger, I would be in the swimming pool, and I would imagine tracking my prey. And when I say prey, I don't mean a person, but I mean a thing. I mean like wanting something and trying to figure out how to get it to come to you, and how to get it to be still, and how to capture that energy. And so I would be in the pool, and I would be imagining that my hands were these great big paws, and I would just skim across the top of the water. And I had a dream, a shamanic dream, I believe, where I was in this in Japan or China or an Asian area, and I was in this tiny little house that was kind of one of these bamboo high-rise apartment things. And I was up at the very, very top, and it was very clean and neat. And I ran down the stairs and went out onto this area that was like a causeway, but the causeway was full of water, and there was this huge tiger that jumped in and padded its way, swam its way across the causeway. To me, there was this experience of the fact that it could traverse something like that, and that it could go after what it wanted, and that it wasn't hindered, and that it was just so focused in the moment. When I think about tigers, I think about energy that's focused in the moment, and that kind of is comfortable in its own skin. These are big, big beasts, and they can inflict damage. They get what it is that they want. So for me, in my family of origin, and in my story, not now, but when I was younger, struggled with the idea of success, because whenever I would be in a situation where there was a potential success, I would feel it kind of stripped away or taken away. And there are certain things in terms of my family of origin that probably made it so that there were very antagonistic situations with other people who were in leadership roles. And I realize that now, sitting here. But so tiger has helped me to get clear, to have joy, to track success into my life on my own terms, and not to face off with an opponent so much. So that's kind of how tiger has shown up. Third chakra is right above your diaphragm, and it when that chakra is active and balanced, we are able to move into the energy of the authentic self. We're able to see a connection with truth in our lives. We're able to move toward what is true specifically for us, and we're able to go after what it is we want and not get caught in these places of the ego. The ego, we know that the ego is there when we really, really, really have to have something, or we're not okay, or we're not willing to go after something at all. That's how we know. That's how ego speaks to us. It's very, very extreme. Lots to lose, lots to gain. So for me, in terms of animal totems, I have a lion there, and I got a lot of ability to work with lion when I was in Peru, because for me, lion is about truth-telling. It's about getting my needs met, no matter what. Lions are the king of the jungle, and they are going to, roar, and they're going to get fed, and they're going to get their needs met. They're not going to be waylaid or not be listened to. When I was in Peru, I had to face off energetically with, I was very, very sick in Cusco for 3 days, very sick. And I had to face off energetically with someone who said that they were going to bring me food and things like this and didn't. And I'm telling you, my lion got raw. I mean, I realized after the fact too, I mean, I wasn't even aware like that this other person was probably struggling with issues of altitude sickness too. They were our leader of our little tribe or little group. But I lit into them. And then after the fact, I was like, oh, wow, maybe they were sick too. But that's the point. When we're in that place of needing something, when we're in that place of making sure that we're getting our needs met, sometimes it's pretty ferocious. Sometimes it's pretty, I'm going to get my needs met. And it's kind of funny because now coming back, I'm not struggling as much with how to say what it is I need. And I'm not struggling with fear as much. Like, I had an opportunity, our next door neighbor was out on the porch, and he was angry about something. And this is a person who would have intimidated me before this Peru trip. And man, I'm telling you, I was like, no, back up. There's an inaccuracy here. Like, I was not intimidated by this person at all. And I believe that's because this lion got so activated so I could get my needs met. I mean, that's the other thing when you're, with a group and you have to keep moving on and you're sick and you're in this place where you're really compromised. And so you're going to get your needs met. There's a lot of defensiveness around making sure that you can keep up, around making sure that you're, all of this sort of stuff. So anyway, the lion for me was really about truth, and it's about truth telling. So when we strip back and we look at that lion and we say, okay, maybe that lion doesn't need to be so ferocious. Maybe that lion just needs to be listened to. Maybe that lion needs to strip back that ferocity, those defenses, and tell the truth, which is, damn it, I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to, this sort of thing. So that energy of the lion took up a lot of space and time in the first part of the Peru trip. And then I was lucky enough to get to go, some of the people went to do an ayahuasca ceremony, and I did a heart-opening medicine, which was I think it was a wild sassafras medicine. And I asked all these animal totems to show up and to balance, because when I was in Peru, I was so in this place of the lion energy, and it was taking up so much space because I felt so compromised health-wise. And so I was just like, okay, if that could have shown up, if Seal could have shown up, and I did all this work with balancing these energies, and that's what we'll talk about when I get to the end, to the 7th. We'll talk about how to check in and how to ask these energies what to do today in a situation. Because that's really what you want to do when you feel overwhelmed or you feel, like something is a stressor for you, is you want to check in and say, hey, Bat, what do I need to know today? Hey, Tiger, how do I need to deal with this situation today? Hey, Lion, what do you have to add? And also in working with these energies, I do some counseling with this work. And what happens is you'll start to realize that they're all working as a group. They're not working in isolation. In the beginning, they may be working in isolation because they're showing up and they're in the very first stages of getting to know you, of inviting the energy in. But as you start to work more and more, you realize that one kind of is aware of the other, and so that you have this whole group of energies that will step in and will help you when you're struggling, when you're sick, when you're struggling with things that feel too big, when you're not noticing something that's beautiful that you might want to notice or express or feel, allow yourself to feel. So that's the 3rd chakra. Then the 4th chakra is the heart chakra. And when this chakra is balanced, it's easy for us to love unconditionally, to love others and to love ourselves, and to not struggle energetically with the differences between how to love. Sometimes we struggle and we think, how do I get my needs met, and how does my partner get their needs met, and how do I help my family, and this sort of thing. And we spend a lot of time and lose a lot of energy around boundaries and around this sort of thing. But when the energy flows and is open and easily clear, we know how to do that. We just know how to navigate that process. So our heart is open, and our heart is receptive, and our heart is clear. And so for me, this area has gone through a lot of changes. But I would say, and I will say, the first chakra or the first animal totem that showed up around this heart chakra was peacock. And peacock was very much about my business and about this sort of thing in it. I had the peacock showed up. There was a white peacock, which was about this clearing process and this purity piece. And then there was a picture of a peacock in our old apartment that I was looking at, and I ended up having to write a paper about peacock for Pacifica. So all these synchronicities happened. But the point of the story is that peacock was very much a thinking totem, and that's one of the pieces that I want to talk about, is the idea that when we first start to do this work, we're usually thinking about what it is that the animal totem might bring to us. We're going, well, I think I like this, and you look through a book and you go, I think it's this, and that's fine, because that's kind of more of an ego way of connecting with these animal totems, which is fine. But what you want to do is ask what the universe has for you. So often the totems that show up, that speak most to us, are not necessarily ones we might be inclined to pick. They're not ones that we would think, oh, well, now I want this one. A case in point, and I'll talk a little bit about the heart chakra. For me, the heart, I went and did a bunch of sacred breath work. There's a wonderful place up in Dvorak, Michigan, a guy, C. Michael Smith. He's a Jungian analyst and also a shaman, and I've done some work with him around sacred breath work, which is this amazing process where you just lie down on your back and you listen to music that's very, very evocative, and you see a lot of visuals and this sort of thing, and you face different parts of yourself. It's beautiful, it's powerful. Well, when I started to do it, I had bat show up, and I knew bat was for chakra, but then there was this little monkey, and I was like, no monkey, no monkey. When you're lying on your back and you're like in an altered state, and you're going, no monkey, you know, you know that your ego is there, right? Because you're saying, I don't want monkey, no. And I was persistent. I was like, I don't want that monkey. And every single time the monkey would come around, I would be like, no, 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 because you're on this mat and you're going through this really emotional process, so you're like real amped up. But anyway, so what happened was I work with squirrel on the porch, and squirrel is probably the animal totem that is the most active in my life. It's the one that I have the most intimate connection with, because I hand feed all the squirrels on our porch, and I've noticed that squirrel energy is a lot about roles. It's a lot about ritual. It's a lot about, there's a moment in time where you're feeding the squirrels, and there's an opportunity there to connect, but the opportunity is short, and the squirrels like to do the same little circuit, So they're creatures of habit. They're very, very much, and also when they bump up against each other, they don't seem to be able to understand that there's more than one nut. They don't get it. You got to put the nut down, and then you got to put a nut down for the other one, and that's how they are. That's on a visceral, like whatever squirrel level. That's where they're at, and you can't kind of get them past that. So I say this because I've struggled with certain relationships that are very rule-oriented or role-oriented and this sort of thing, and so squirrel is the heart chakra totem for me, but lately monkey has been stepping in, and I finally have gotten past the idea that I don't like the idea of monkey, and realize that monkey really is active in my heart. And for me, monkey is about a more evolved way of communicating, because monkeys are so much like us. They're genetically very, very, very close to us. And they have very, very evolved and sophisticated forms of communication that are very emotionally based. And so as I move through the opportunity to connect on a more subtle level in my relationships, I notice that the energy of squirrel and monkey are both tandem there in my heart. And they're, that as I change, my my connection with these totems changes. Which brings me to the idea that you're not going to have the same totem all your life. As you make connections with other animals and other ones resonate for you and start to speak more, you're going to notice that they shift around. These animals shift around, and that when one has a lesson for you for a while, it might not at a certain point. And it's okay for that process to happen. It's okay to have some popping around and you're not sure if they're in your fifth or your third, or that's all just fine. You're just looking for a resonance. You're looking to trust your intuition as you open more to these conversations with them, so that you start to know, oh, well, this feels like my heart, and this feels like my second chakra. And it's okay not to know. And it's okay to have a bunch around that don't have a place yet, or don't have a special spot that they're speaking from. So all these rules that the books tell you, it's really just about honoring your intuition, and it's really about knowing what resonates for you and trusting that process. So fifth chakra is your throat chakra. And when that chakra is open, it's easy for us to say what it is we need in the world, and to connect with that, and to do things in our very, very unique kind of a way. When that chakra is closed, it's hard for us to ask for what we need. When that chakra is working on being balanced, it's very hard for us to ask for what we need. It's hard for us to notice like the idiosyncratic ways that we do things in the world, and to honor them, to get up in the morning and do your little weird ritual that you do. You're less inclined to do it if your fifth chakra isn't balanced. You're more inclined to go, no, I need to get this done and this done and this done. But when it starts to open up, you can't ignore that. If you got to make juice that morning, you're not going to go, I'm too busy to make juice. You're going to go, no, juice is going to reset me. It's going to make me feel better if I make this kind of juice. And you're going to listen more deeply to what's true for you. So for me, my fifth chakra is a parrot, which came in a shamanic journey that I did at the Reiki Center. Wonderful shamanic journey. I really encourage you. Kristalin Nin does wonderful work with shamanic journeying, and I was lucky enough to get to attend one of her sessions. And for me, that's a parrot. And I did a radio show for about 4 years called Inner Voice Intuitive Hour. I don't do it anymore. But when I was doing it, I was connecting with the energy of parrot, because we had just seen that movie, Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. And if you've ever seen it, they have this whole life where, you think that they're in Telegraph Park or whatever, I can't remember the name of the park, but really they truck up and down all these different people's porches, and they fly, and they have these really cool relationships that you wouldn't even know that they had. So, and for me, when Parrot showed up, my parrot was very clear that her name was Molly, not Polly. So when I think about Polly, I think about Polly wants a cracker, Polly Parrot's back, your typical kind of parrot that is the parroting parrot. And for me, Molly meant, well, yeah, you got to parrot, you got to say a little bit what people want to hear, but then you got to stretch the conversation, and you got to, use your own imagination and your own creativity. And for me, when I started to do the radio show, you have these guests on, and they have different kinds of ideas about what it's like to be on a show, and then you have this idea about what you want your show to be, and you want this great rapport, and sometimes it's not easy to get. So for me, Molly was about, okay, it rhymes with Polly, so it's a little bit like, a traditional kind of parrot energy, but it's Molly, which is really, really different. So when I started doing the radio show, I noticed that a lot of people were listening in California, which equated with this whole connection with the wild parrots of Telegraph Hill. And so for me, when Molly steps in, I know that I have to, and growing up in a household where you're made to parrot everything, like in order to get your needs met, you're made to parrot back everything. It's really, really important to notice that it's not bad to parrot back something. It's not bad to say, oh, yes, I hear exactly what you're saying. Let me repeat it back to you. That's a great thing to do. But there's a part in us where we need to show up too and say, did you see it? Can you see it this way? And a really good conversation does both of those things. So I got better with the radio show. But the point is just, so my parrot is Molly. So what I would say to you is, as you're figuring out your own animals, notice these little uniqueness in story, these kinds of ways that might relate to things that you've dealt with in your family, or these just little wrinkles of the story that make the story more unique and add more color and life and depth to the relationship with the energy. So my 7th chakra is owl, and when that chakra is balanced and open, it's easy for us to connect with our intuition. And I like to talk about the idea of moving from the place of the imagination to intention setting, to following our intuition, and to manifesting. Because I feel like there is a strip of energy, just if you imagine, like, just a bright light, and that there's a correlation between these things. That we start with the imagination, and then we move into intention setting, and then we move into listening to our intuition and activating that desire, and then we create the energy of manifestation. So for me, that energy is owl, and owl is all about connecting with the energy of the night, connecting with the energy of the dark, being able to open up that intuitive sense of self. And right now, it's kind of funny because even though I work with that on a regular basis in my work, I don't have a lot of stories about it, which makes me think that it's really active. When it showed up, and I went to see a poet as an undergraduate in college, and the poet had written this amazing poem about owls and who's and all this kind of different energies of the self. Her name's Brenda Hillman. She's a wonderful poet if you like poetry. And so for me, that energy was really, really active, and I know it's really active now, but I don't have a lot of stories about it right now. It's the only one that is a little bit on the dormant side. Maybe it's because I'm using it in my everyday work, and so it doesn't need to tell me. So I don't know what that's about. But 7th chakra, I'll have to check in and figure it out. 7th chakra for me is seal, and 7th chakra is about connecting with source energy. We live in a culture that tells us that we're disconnected from source, and that we have to work so hard to do everything, and these sorts of messages. And in reality, we don't. All we have to do is recognize that we're this divine antenna, we're this divine source all the time, and that we're always connected to source. And it's us that creates the illusion that we're disconnected. So for me, seal is that animal totem. And seal, I have a very loving relationship with seal. Seal showed up in my dreams when I was pretty young, and showed up kind of angry and would pee all over everything. This little baby seal, this little white seal. I would be holding it and it would piss on me. And I was like, okay, because to me that represented like being disconnected from a part of the psyche, from a softness, right? And when I think too about seals, and I think about like what their predator is, I think about man. I think about human beings who are so violent toward them. And so to me, those were very, very instructive pieces of information. And I struggled in the first part of my life with, in situations where I was really pitched in very combative situations with people, not because I wanted to be, I think maybe because I was empathic and intuitive, and I didn't know other people didn't want to know that kind of stuff, so I'd put them in situations they were uncomfortable with. And then these people would be very, very power-based kinds of people, because you find the people who are closest to you. So if you have a parent who's particularly power-hungry and invested in the idea of power, you go out and you attract people who are invested in the idea of power, and then you're like, whoa, I don't want this. So I would get in these pitch situations, and then I would there would be a lot of sabotaging influences, and I don't think I was very aware of the fact that I was around people who did not want to connect with their intuition, who did not want to know what the shadow was, who did not, they wanted to win at all costs, and they wanted to have everybody around them say they're amazing, and you didn't want to struggle with the subtleties of life. So for me, I think that seal was, was the predator was human, because my predator was human, so to speak, for a long time, till I figured out I didn't want to be around those kinds of people at all, as much as I possibly could not be. And and the pissing, the seal pissing on me, I think was like, well, I mean, make of it what you will, but I think that it was like not being connected to my own softer energies, and being, having, not realizing that I needed to instinctively nurture that little baby, that little baby energy in me that was so vibrant and pure and all this sort of stuff. So then when I read Ted Andrews' book, Ted Andrews talks about seals, they're pinnipeds, right? So they're different than sea lions. They have only internal ears. And so that is about being connected to source energy, being connected to the unconscious, and being connected to intuition and lucid dreaming. And my first step into this world was about lucid dreaming. So when I read that, my jaw was just dropping open, because there could not be an animal that was more connected to me than seal. I mean, and I just picked it. I was like, I feel really drawn to seal, and seal showed up in dreams. And you know how these synchronicity principles work. But the other thing that happened was I had a dream. I was getting ready to make some changes in my life, and I had a dream that I was sitting on this pillar of pillows about 8 miles in the sky, and I was sitting there, and I was like, okay, and I mean, imagine the tower in the Tarot. So if you're familiar with the Tarot and like all of the ego structure, when the Tarot, when the tower falls and collapses, and we have to just kind of go, okay, I let go, instead of I brace, right? So this is the tower in the Tarot, in the dream, and so I'm like, okay, I'm up here, 8 miles in the air, and I'm still, and I'm holding it all together, and I was like, this is ridiculous, and I was just like, well, I'm gonna fall, and I'm like, I don't care. So I was just like, phew, and I fell, and when I fell, I landed in this this whole alcove, this whole rookery of seals, and I was around all these soft pillows were underneath me, and there were all these sweet seals, adult seals, and I was okay, I was safe, and when I went to school at a school called Pacifica in California, and when I went down the beach in Carpinteria, there was the seal rookery. And I had dreams where, to me, that seal and the 7 chakra is all about the individuation process. It's all about finding your tribe, which is how it connects first with the first chakra, which is about finding your tribe too, but it's about saying no to people who aren't in your tribe. 7th chakra is about saying yes to people who are in your tribe. So that's why I think there was this, kite string in both the 1st and the 7th chakra. That would be my guess. And that they created some sort of sacred loop. But anyway, so when I went to Pacifica, there were all these like-minded others who used their intuition as a tool in their counseling work. And so to me, I had finally found my tribe. I had finally found all these wonderful seal people. So those are just some of the stories, and I could tell more, but I probably won't, although there's a toucan now. He's interesting. But anyway, I don't know where he belongs, but he's bright and colorful, and he spits these seeds out of his mouth and then swallows them. I watched a whole bunch of videos on YouTube about it yesterday, and he showed up in a journey. But I don't know where he fits. But anyway. The 6th chakra? Oh, the 6th chakra is your third eye. Your third eye chakra.
And which was your animal?
Owl.
Okay, I got that. Something like that.
Owl.
Okay.
And
right.
Oh, okay.
What?
Yeah, okay.
You said 7th when you started talking about the 6th.
Thank you. I
Oh,
appreciate
did
it.
I? Thank you for pointing that out.
I said no, it's 7th.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You get talking, and sometimes the details go out the window with me anyway. So I hope you can follow. But so anyway, these are some of the ways to work with animal totems, and I encourage you to explore it for yourself. And I encourage you to find all the wrinkles and all the colors and all the delight and all the stories. And if you don't, if you just ask what's there. And be receptive to what's there, you will get clearer about what that looks like for yourself. So when I have checked in, I just check in, and it's a super great check-in, and you can do it whether or not you have identified 7 chakra animals or not. You can do it if you've identified 2. And you can actually just ask an animal to step in and say, what does it have for you today? And explore it that way. But all I do is I just say, like say I'm having a struggle with something, I just say, Bat, what is it you want to share with me today? What do I need to know to get through the day? And then I say, Tiger, what do I need to know to get through the day? And sometimes it's just a gesture, it's just a softening, or it's just, so it's energetically this place of alignment in ourselves. It's energetically this place of deeper resonance. So it might not be a literal, like, you need to go down to the store and get, it might be, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just, they just show up and they empower you, or they inspire you. And what it does is it makes it so your ego, your parts that we struggle with so much in the world, don't have to work as hard when we check in these ways. They don't have to work as hard. They don't have to do as much. So I encourage you to play around with that idea too. I do sessions, so if anybody's interested in having an animal totem session, having me facilitate one for you, I'd be happy to do that. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.